I love and hate Dragon Age the Veilguard, and I want to make this distinction right away. Parts of Dragon Age the Veilguard that I love are few and far in between. BioWare has created about 5 to 6 missions in Dragon Age the Veilguard that I can consider absolute 10 out of 10 banger missions. That includes the start of the game, the middle of the game, the end of the game, and a few companion quests. And that's why I love Dragon Age the Veilguard. Those missions alone make me adore this game. But I also do fundamentally hate Dragon Age the Veilguard for the reason of you put me into this amazing mission that is a 10 out of 10 amazing quest, great characters, great storytelling, and then you throw me into 6 to 7 hours of garbage. Then you put me in another quest that's amazing, then 6 to 7 hours of garbage. Repeat that 3 to 4 more times, give me an amazing final mission, and then end the game. I'd like to say that Dragon Age the Veilguard is by far the most inconsistent game I've ever played, because there are points where I'm thinking, dude, BioWare cooked unfathomably hard here. Like, they went so hard, and then I'm like, how do you also fumble a video game so hard as well? You had such an easy win. I honestly don't know how BioWare was able to make a 5-star full course meal and also burn down the kitchen in the same video game. Even with the Veilguard being one of the most inconsistent video games I've ever played, I did consistently like certain aspects of the game, and we're going to be going over that in the pros section of this video first before we get on to the things I really did not like and hated. Dragon Age the Veilguard is by far one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, and for this reason. Its world, its graphics, and its art style more in tune with its actual like environments than its character designs, because we'll get into that in a bit. But its actual world and environments look beautiful. The forests, the necropolis, you also have Minrathous, you also have Vericio, I'm pretty sure I said that right, that's the Crow City. Just so many different and distinct areas that all look gorgeous. And apart from one bug where an enemy kind of like stayed stunned forever, this is the most polished video game I think I've played. I've had no crashes, no stuttering, no game-breaking bugs, barely any normal bugs at all. I don't understand like how this hasn't been brought up in the industry at all, that this game is like relatively bug-free. I was just pleasantly surprised to see that in 2024 we have a big AAA game that may be extremely inconsistent in some areas, but is also relatively bug-free as well. Super happy to see that. And I'm going to start this part off with some of the companions. When I say this, some of the companions I really enjoyed. Lucanus, Davrin, Balara, and Emmerich. Those 4 in particular I really enjoyed. Like, I need BioWare to understand, when you create a Spanish assassin who likes coffee and likes to cook, you immediately have me. Like, you immediately have me. He was my favorite companion. Lucanus is an absolute G. Emmerich as well, a necromancer I really enjoyed. Balara, like a veil jumper elf. You also have Davrin, probably, my second favorite companion. Me and the boys. I always made that joke when I was playing through Dragon Age the Veilguard. It would always be me, Lucanus, and Davrin running through these areas. Be like, boys. Because the rest of the companions, honestly, again, aside from Emmerich and Balara, I did not like. I did not like Nev, Tash, and Harding because of poor writing, because of poor voice acting, and now this isn't distinct to all 3. I know Harding had some pretty solid voice acting, but Nev and Tash, oh my god. And we're gonna really get into Tash's whole situation in a bit, but just to safe to say, I was not a fan of these companions as much as I was with the other 4, and I really feel like I could love them a lot more if they were just done better. Finally, the combat systems I also really enjoyed after the first few hours. Once you start to unlock more skills, I specialized in Reaper in the end, so I got all those abilities at the bottom. I really did enjoy my time with my melee combat knight warden / build. I did also play as a crow, so I was actually really happy to see that I was really best friends with Lucanus, because we were both assassin crows, and I thought that was really cool. You don't really get many abilities as being a crow, but you do get actually a decent amount of dialogue options that affect some areas, and that can make some questing easier. Now we're going to be getting on to my favorite part of this. We're going to be ranting about Dragon Age the Veilguard, and oh my god, is there a lot to rant about. I extremely disliked the exploration in this game for the main reason of it was literally going corridor to corridor, basically like Doom, right? It's like an arena shooter. You're in a big octagon or circle area, you kill a bunch of enemies, corridor to the next area, repeat, do a bit of a cutscene and dialogue, repeat. That is the entire exploration loop. Even if you go off-centered to the actual questing, it's the same thing. It's all just corridors. There's no big open area that you can go explore. It's just extremely disappointing compared to Inquisition, because Inquisition had actual big areas. The writing and dialogue in this game, outside of those few mentions that I mentioned at the beginning of the game, is garbage. It is fundamentally garbage. It is inconsistent. It is painful to listen to. Every single time I was not playing one of those big missions, I usually just skipped the dialogue and read the subtitles because I was so bored. It was such poor voice acting, such poor writing. I want to know who did this so we can get them like gone from that studio. They need to move jobs. They are awful at their job. I don't know what they were doing. But since we're talking about the writing and dialogue in this game, I need to bring up Tash, because Tash is a big point of contention in the community right now when talking about the Veilguard. I like Tash, and Tash is the non-binary character in Dragon Age the Veilguard. Big controversy piece, right? I do enjoy Tash's character. My issue with Tash is that the majority of this character's side quests, and Tash is a fucking dragon slayer, a literal brute dragon slayer, and 90% of the questing with Tash is having dinner with their mom to open them up to being non-binary, is talking about being non-binary and not accepting them for who they are, and not killing dragons and shit. You had a perfect character for this, and I understand if you want to make a character who isn't comfortable with who they are, but when it's 90% of their questing, it is lazy, it is boring, it is uninspired, it is garbage. There are certain parts of the game where I really enjoy Tash as a character, whether it's these big cutscenes where Tash is fighting and just looks like a brute, right? Again, Tash is this dragon slayer badass, and then you make 90% of their questing just garbage. I don't know how you have such a cool character and you ruin it completely, because Tash could be a fan favorite, I guarantee it. The writing and the story is there. You just butchered it. BioWare, they butchered it. And that's really where my opinion is on most of this game. I know BioWare can do better, but they just choose not to. They choose to butcher it, they choose to be inconsistent, they choose to make garbage and slop. They choose to make a boring open world, even though that the worlds are beautiful. The environments in the areas may be beautiful. There's a lack of anything to really do other than to accept faction quests and companion quests. The game is painfully outdated when it comes to its mission design. Its level design may be awesome and its environments may look beautiful, but it's outdated by like 8 years. This game, I feel like if it came out in 2018 in the same state it was in, it would be a lot better, just because it wouldn't feel as outdated. Because I feel like I've played this game before. This game feels like Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Odyssey, right? In that sense of how I'm walking around, how I'm approaching combat. It feels boring, it feels like I've played it before, and for a video game on the scale of Dragon Age, I do not think that I should be feeling these feelings when playing this game. Apart from about 10 characters in the entirety of Dragon Age the Veilguard, and maybe up to 12, I would say the rest of them are extremely poorly written and have awful dialogue. And I mean out of every single character in the Veilguard, not just companions and not just the faction quest leaders. Those were the pros and cons that I thought of Dragon Age the Veilguard. Now, the biggest inconsistency I have is that I don't know how to feel about the ending. Dragon Age the Veilguard is more like Mass Effect Andromeda and less like the previous Dragon Age games and Mass Effect games. It has one ending. Even in the final area where it gives you two options, it leads to the same ending. My personal favorite part about that though is that it kind of leads off to how Solas is feeling. And I'm going to be getting into major spoiler sections. Again, if you don't care, don't worry about it, you're not missing out on much, but if you do care, definitely click off the video now. So there are a few things just to bring up these little points. There is a extra dagger that Emmerich created to mimic Solas's dagger, right, to look exactly like it. Now, it can't perform the same magical systems and abilities that his dagger can, but it looks identical and feels identical. It's also worthwhile to note that Algarian and Gilahan, the two elven gods as the bosses of this game, are tied to the Veil. So when you kill them, the Veil gets teared open. So the only way to kill these gods and also, stop the Veil from tearing open is to tie Solas to the Veil. So your two options for finishing off the game to get the same ending are, either you can swap out the dagger with Solas's dagger to get him to hit the Veil with the fake dagger, which holds him in place and actually grips him down so he cannot move, right? Magic is literally holding him in place. Or you try to kill him with the real dagger, he stops you, and then you have all your companions coming in to beat his ass, right? And then you do get the final blow. The one thing I really liked about these two different kind of choices is that the dialogue and how Solas gets ended off is very different. So I'm going to be showing that here.
It is done. The world owes you a debt. Both for defeating Elganon and for bringing down the Veil. I am sorry for this final betrayal, but I will do what I can to minimize the damage. When you see the old world restored, please, Rook. I do not wish to fight against you. The Veil's not coming down on my watch. It is over. You could never stand against me alone. If you will excuse me, the final enchantments require a delicate touch. A delicate touch? You kill Varric, stab me in the back. You're about to drown the world in demons. How are you any different from Elganon, trying to impose your will on all of us? Elganon would have seized his victory by force. You were not crushed by the power of the Dread Wolf. You were bested fairly, by wits alone. Dagger was a fake. Here's the real one. And now the Veil is once again tied to the life force of an elven god. Bested fairly by wits alone. I taught you well. You're a backstabbing liar who's getting what he deserves. You think yourself capable of judging me? I have faced things you could not possibly comprehend. You are a mortal! A mortal! And I am... I am a fool who finally met his match. The Veil's not coming down on my watch. It is over. You could never stand against me alone. If you will excuse me, the final enchantments require a delicate touch. I am standing against you, and I am not alone. But you will be. The Veil needs to be tied to the life force of an elven god. And now it is. Dread. You sneer at me as though you understand. You are mortal compared to you, to your infinitesimal existence. I am a god!
In my opinion, those last two choices really do matter, even though if it doesn't lead off to different endings. I really do like how they ended it off with Solus. If you outwit him, he gives up. He's like, you know what? It's like some Thanos shit, right? It's like some endgame stuff. He sits down, he gives up. If you outwit him, if you brute force it, fight him with your companions, he's still angry. He's still like, no, I am a god. You cannot have bested me. This was just luck. I will be back, right? Like that kind of energy. I really enjoyed that, especially in that first cutscene that I showed you, where he calmly said, I'm a fool, and he kind of just gave up, you know, who's outmatched. I really did enjoy that. That is peak BioWare writing in the modern age. I really enjoyed that. Like, I'm being really genuine when I say this. When I watch those endings, I feel like, dude, this was a 10 out of 10. The entire thing came together so well. But then I have to take a step back and look. The game was good at like 5, 6 times in the entire like 40 hours I've put into this game. It was not a great game. It was great in like 2-hour increments over 40 hours after 7 hours of garbage. I enjoyed the time I had excessively with those really good points, especially the ending cutscenes I just showed you. I was like emotional as shit. The last 2 hours, characters were dying, and I'm gonna say that straight up because characters do die. I was getting emotional. I replayed part of the entire ending just because characters that I didn't want to die died, and I replace them with other characters that I really didn't care for. You could probably figure that out from what I was saying earlier. Like, there's so much of this game that I want to gush about, that I want to say is awesome, but then I also have to look at it as, look, this game, it just isn't. It just isn't this amazing game that I feel like it should be, that I feel like BioWare can make, because it's so inconsistently garbage. And I'm very disappointed overall with what BioWare created, because you have these amazing points, and I know I've said this several times, you have these amazing points that are just awesome 10 out of 10s, and then you have the rest of the game that is like 2 out of 10 garbage. That is like modern gaming slop. It really is. To end it off, Dragon Age the Veilguard is the most inconsistent game that I've ever played. It has some great sections. It has some decent choices when it comes to its companions that can really change the outcomes of your companion's character. My issue is that it is inconsistent in that way. It does not stay consistent for more than a few hours. So if you're playing for 5 to 6 hours, there's a good chance that a majority of that is going to be really boring and just fetch quest garbage. If Dragon Age the Veilguard is any indication of what we have to come for the next Mass Effect game, I'm extremely worried. Not only on its poor writing and dialogue, which Mass Effect is known for, but that, again, it is extremely inconsistent. You cannot be giving me 40 minutes of awesome, 6 to 7 hours of garbage, 2 hours of awesome, and then repeat that 4 times and expect me to say that it's a great game. There's certain parts of this game, and this makes it really hard to actually give it a fair score, right? Because there are certain parts of this game that I really enjoy, that I want to give it a 10 out of 10 just because I played that. When I finished the game, I felt like, dude, this is a 10 out of 10. But I had to take my time and give it a rest for a few days because I was thinking, dude, I cannot go off half-cocked and say that this is an amazing game because of the amazing ending I just played. Because if I call this game a 10 out of 10 for the last 2-3 hours of the game, it's completely inconsistent to everything I was talking about in this video. The game is not a 10 out of 10. And the game also has those points where it is a 2 out of 10 and a 1 out of 10 because of its really bad writing, its really bad dialogue, and just so many little things that make it awful. So if you had to ask me for a score, I would give it a 5 out of 10. It is right down the middle. It is an average video game. You could even argue it's a 4. I could definitely see a 3. I could definitely see a 6 or a 7. But in my opinion, I would give it right down the middle, 5 out of 10. It is the most inconsistent, garbage, but also awesome game that I think I've played in a long time. There are aspects and set pieces to this game that make me want to keep playing and investing into these characters. But the world is also so beautiful as well, but also so not filled with anything to do outside of boring quests that I don't want to stay in this world any longer than I have to. All I ask is that BioWare, please, do better for the next Mass Effect game, because I know you can do better. And whoever wrote Dragon Age the Veilguard, we need them gone.